Nagisa will be making an appearance in this video, but before we get there, we gotta get for the quality of life stuff first, and there's some good stuff here. So we're gonna start out right here with this one, which is just, when you now go to the event archive page, you will see an overview of all of the different event bonuses that you have, so you can immediately select the one that you actually have the biggest bonus for. Nothing too special. Then, and this is actually the more important stuff, you know how you didn't actually know how much break gauge depletion each of your attacks actually did, other than, you know, watching the enemy bar go down? Well, now you can actually know, because they will actually now put in the actual values for how much break gauge depletion each attack does in the overview right here. Now this is something that before we kind of knew, but only from data mines. Now you know without data mines. Perfect, awesome, great. And these two changes are going to be happening tomorrow. Awesome, fantastic. Then later for this September, they're going to introduce a new item, which is the Eternal Drop Lock. And what this does is it functions the same way as a normal drop lock, where you can, when you reroll a Crystallis substat, you spend some drop locks and it will then lock the stat, and then you can't get that stat changed anymore. But it costs drop locks every single time you roll. But the new Eternal Drop Lock now makes it so that once you spend Eternal Drop Locks on locking a substat, that substat is locked forever, and you don't have to spend any more drop locks on keeping that stat there. But you can manually remove the lock if you want. Now, they haven't mentioned yet how you're gonna get these, but I assume they, as usual, from event bonuses, stuff like that. Then there's going to be a new link rate season, as always. Well, I say as always, there's going to be a new one basically every single 2 weeks now. And for this one, they said we kind of want to have a redo against the first one. So we're going back to the first link rate witch, the sandbox witch. It's going to be the exact same fight with the same weaknesses, the same bonuses, the same everything. But there will be some changes. Well, first off, you can get more rewards, as always. But secondly, what they're going to change about it is they're going to increase the amount of gold and silver medals that you're getting. That's pretty good. And secondly, they're going to change the logic of how the backup request list is shown to people, to make it more likely that A, you will see people that really need help, and B, that you make it more likely to see battles that the game believes you'll actually do well in. So for example, if you're a free-to-play player, you probably won't see level 17, 18, 19, 20 or something anymore, because that's way too high level for you. Stuff like that is my guess, at least. So they haven't really, we'll see how it actually works when it goes live, but right now we haven't really been able to, you know, actually know what it is. Next up, they talked a bit about the half anniversary and about Magia Day. They showed some merch off, but merchandise is only available if you live in Japan, so there's not really any point. But more importantly, there's going to be a countdown login bonus. Yay, for 3,000 gems. Great. I mean, yeah, I like free gems, but we're basically getting login bonuses for basically everything right now, so it's not really that newsworthy in itself, and you're going to play every single day anyway, right? But more importantly, the actual new feature that they're gonna, as you can see, bring to us in late September, the camera feature. This was something that in a certain way was already in Madoka Exedra, but with less functionality. And now they're going to bring it back for Exedra and actually give it a few more functions. So it's actually going to be even better now than it was back in Madoka Exedra. So the way the camera function works is you basically hit the camera button, and then if you're on mobile phone, you will just activate your camera. I assume if you're on PC, it might take your webcam. But if you don't want to use your camera, you can also pick one of the in-game either 2D backgrounds or 3D backgrounds, and it will just put a character that you select, that you have, onto that background. And you can like walk around with them outside if you want to, and have them just stand there superimposed on where you're going. Or like I said, in one of the game backgrounds. You can also give them certain poses that they should take. We don't know exactly which poses that's going to be, but it seems like there will be multiple poses you can select from for them to take. You can tell them exactly where to stand, and you can have them play voice lines, for example. But they mentioned right now that you can only select voice lines that you've actually unlocked in the HUD file, but we don't know if that's going to change at some point. I assume there's going to be a change at some point to HUD file system generally, just to make it easier to get stuff earlier. Would be my guess, but we don't know. And that's basically the general idea. They also mentioned that right now they're going to introduce it for like the base versions of each character and not the alt characters. For example, Holy Mummy, is because it's an alt of Mummy. But they will do that in the future. Right now though, only for the base characters. And it's coming late September. So it's not really that big of a feature for most people. Like, most people won't care about that. But I know some people that care a lot about this feature, because they can go take a walk with their favorite character. Or they can just have them pose in weird ways or whatever. Like, I don't know. So yeah, that's that's something for you people out there who've really been wanting this feature, because it was already, like I said, in a lesser version in Madoka Record, but now it's back and in full force. Speaking about full force, there is indeed something that I need you guys to see. It's Nagisa. Now this is what the community has called Shiny Nagisa. And this Nagisa is from Scene 0, and it's not the normal version of Nagisa. As you can see, there's something going on here. So I'm not gonna spoil anything, of course, but I will say that this is a very special version of Nagisa that has came into existence through a very special way. And you'll just have to see what this Nagisa's deal with is in Scene 0 Part 2, which is going to launch on the 18th of September. This is like in 2 days or something, Jesus. So it's basically already almost here. Which also means that if we think about something else in the vicinity of this date, the half anniversary Magia Day. So Magia Day is this big event that happens where they introduce, or if you already know them, they basically give you a bunch of voice actors for all of the different characters that are going to appear on stage, and they're just going to talk about the game. They're going to play some mini games, they're going to press some mock cue buttons, they're just going to do random stuff on stage while they also talk about the game, and there's also going to be some game news. And usually Magia Day exists to just, well, celebrate the game, and it used to be Madoka Record, now it's Madoka Exedra. They're celebrating Madoka Exedra, but also they're giving you some news about the future. Maybe not news about stuff they're going to add to the game immediately afterwards, but they're going to say, for example, within the next half year, we're going to give you a new type of content that is such and such, and they're going to introduce some really big stuff. So a lot of people are really looking forward to the Magia Day, because the biggest news of the year is going to happen on Magia Day, even if it's not going to be like directly in the future, but maybe a few months away. But the reason I bring this up is on a Magia Day, one of the voice actors that is present is the voice actor for Nagisa. And since they just introduce her in Scene 0, even though it's a different version of Nagisa, I'm not going to say that Nagisa isn't going to happen around Magia Day. I'm not going to say that Nagisa isn't going to happen after Mel, but Nagisa is probably going to happen after Mel, which also means that if you're a Mifuyu fan, you're really fucking sad. But yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say, is that yeah, Nagisa is probably quite likely going to happen around or after Magia Day, which is going to be in like 2 weeks from now. It's about 2 weeks from now is Magia Day. I don't think it's going to be Shiny Nagisa. I think they're going to give us the Rebellion story Nagisa, but just saying, so you know, it's very likely to happen very soon. So if you have been thinking about which character to roll next and you really like Nagisa, you may have to actually wait for Nagisa. Now for Scene 0, they're also saying that, well, since apparently Sayaka is going to appear quite often in this version, in this part of Scene 0, we're going to give you a double banner with both Mapiyu and Sayaka. And this one, similar to the Magia's banner last time, is going to have only a 50-point pity banner, pity bonus draw rate, whatever you want to call it, where if you roll 50 times, you get a bonus character. But that's about it. So usually these banners are not really that interesting. But if you really want either of these characters or both of them, sure, why not? But probably not, because like I said, Magia Day is coming up, and there might be some really big gachas with that as well. And now for the even more important stuff, because who cares about Nagisa, right? Here's Mel, the next character. She's going to, of course, have her own event, which also has the new Scene 0 event running at the same time, and the Scene 0 main story. So there's actually going to be a lot of stuff happening on the 18th that we're going to get all at once. And yeah, so Mel will get her own event that's going to happen at the same time, and of course she will release as a playable character, as a playable Kyoku. Here is the beta version of the machine translated kit, even though the machine translated version of this kit is kind of sad because there's a lot of different lines and the text is very small, and Google Translate has a lot of problems actually translating everything on screen. So as always, take machine translation with a bit of a grain of salt, but I have seen the actual kit and I know this is kind of accurate to what her kit is, even with Google Translate. So what is up with Mel? She is a forest breaker. She does single target damage, single target breaking, that is what she does. And she has a magic stack system, which a lot of characters have, but they're usually pretty interesting systems. And the way that she works is, do you know Chingtra from Star Rail? It's basically that. So her skill is extremely interesting because her skill doesn't actually end the turn. You see, her skill will cost a skill point, of course, but then when you use it, it says act again. So you can use a skill and then immediately use a normal attack if you want to, because your turn doesn't end, it just continues. But you could also use skill into skill, into skill, into skill, into skill, into skill. Oh my god, you could infinitely skill on the same turn, as long as you have skill points, of course, because every single one costs a skill point. But theoretically, you can just keep using skill. Now, why would you want to do this? Doesn't the skill do damage? No, it doesn't actually do damage. It just gives you a stack of magic and increases your speed, which, by the way, if you get an extra turn from this act again, extra turn doesn't mean, means that your buffs don't tick down. So if you have a buff on you that only lasts for 1 turn, if you press the skill 4 times, you're still gonna have that buff on you. Like, that buff doesn't disappear because your turn hasn't ended yet. So this speed buff, you'll just have the speed buff on you until the end of your next turn afterwards. But the important part is you gain a magic stack. Why would you want to use a lot of skill points to gain magic? So what your magic does is it stacks only up to 3. So at most you're only going to be using 3 of these in a row. And it makes your normal attack do more damage, which doesn't matter because her base attack is terrible. It makes your normal attack do more break gauge depletion, which you don't know how much it does actually, because even though they now give you the numbers on the skills, they don't give you the numbers on these passive effects. Why? So your normal attack does more break gauge depletion, and your normal attack does more break bonus. So your normal attack just goes hyper the more stacks you have, up to a maximum of 3. And if you look at her normal attack will always reduce all of your stacks to 0. Even if you have 1, if you have 2 stacks, if you have 3 stacks, no matter how many magic stacks you have, your normal attack will use all of them at once. And what it will do is, if you have less than 3, so if you have 0, 1, or 2, it does nothing. Actually, there's nothing. It's just a normal attack, and you've just wasted your magic stacks. How could you? But if you have 3 magic, then of course, as always, it uses your 3 magic stacks up by the attack. But it then also gives you an additional break gauge reduction, break gauge depletion buff, as well as more MP. So you want to always have 3 magic when you use your normal attack, so that you trigger these 2 bonus effects. Awesome. So now you see, oh, you use skill 3 times, which makes your normal attack with your passive really powerful, and then you let it rip and gain bonus buffs out of it. Awesome. So using skill 3 times costs 3 SP, but normal attack gives you 1 SP back. And then you see the special. So the special does damage to 1 enemy, and then increases the wood damage, like the forest damage they take, by 10%, which isn't very much. But the important part is it then gives you back all of your magic power. Awesome. So you then get back to 3 magic, which means you can use another normal attack. So you can kind of see how this is going to go. You're going to use 3 skills into normal attack, and then with some MP % bonuses like MP Portrait or MP Crystallis, or having a mummy on the team, for example, having Kirika on the team, something like that. With just a single one of these 3 skill normal attacks, you're gonna be at your special. Because 3 skills into normal attack with the plus 10 MP, that's a lot of MP. That is a crazy amount of MP you're getting. People have said, oh my god, she has 150 cost on her MP cost for a special. That's so much, she's never gonna be able to special. You're gonna use 3 skills a turn and a normal attack that gives bonus MP. You're not gonna have to worry too much about her MP, because you're gonna be getting so much. So yeah, in just a single turn you're getting to special. Then after you use special, you can use another normal attack. So you're always using 3 skill, normal attack, special, normal attack. And then it starts over. 3 skill, normal attack, special, normal attack. That just continues forever. And if you do the maths, you use 3 skills and you get 2 normal attacks out of that. Which means that overall, since that's across 2 turns, do the maths, you're using on average about half a skill point every turn. Which is actually really efficient, because most breakers, they use 1 skill point every turn because they want to use their skill every turn. But with Mel, it sort of averages out that you're only using about half a skill point every turn, with the only caveat that you always need to kickstart it by using 3 skill points. Normal attack, special, normal attack. You always need to be able to just kickstart it with that 3 SP, and that is what makes her so interesting, because you can't do it with auto battle. Auto battle is going to mess this up. Auto battle always uses skills, and you're not going to have 3 skill points on Mel's turn, so you're not going to be able to get to her enhanced normal attack, and you're not going to be able to get to special. And don't play her on auto battle. She's going to suck so bad in auto battle. But on minor battle, she might be really good. She actually looks pretty nice, and one of the most unique characters out there, where you have to specifically make sure that if you just use her special, if you just use her normal attack, you need to then have 3 skill points, so they can kickstart her into her next special. Really nice, really interesting. So Supportability, I haven't even read that much. It's good, specifically for normal attacks, but you're not going to use normal attacks that often for other breakers, because other breakers want to use their skills most of the time. But then they at least can gain 25% speed if they use the skill. So you at least get something, even if they don't use their normal attack that often. And then the Ascension 2 makes it easier on your very first rotation. On your very first rotation, you only need to use your skill once, because you start the battle with 2 magic. Great. That kick starts you much better. But keep in mind, that keeps you away from your special. So even though you need less SP to actually start her first rotation, you're not going to get to special. So you then actually need to use additional skill points anyway. So that's kind of weird. More importantly though, whenever you use your skill, you then actually give yourself more speed, which means that if you do it the actual intended way, which is 3 skills, and then normal attack, then special, then normal attack, you basically get an additional 15% speed because you use the skill 3 times. Awesome. And then the EX is just an additional 1 magic at the start of battle. I think it's behind my... Yeah, it's actually really far down there. Hold up. There we go. Sorry. That's really small now. I'm really sorry. Yeah, it just gives you 1 magic power at the start of the battle. And 10% action advance when you use a normal attack, which is fine. You're actually using your normal attack on her. And the +1 magic at the start of battle, which with EX and with Ascension 2, you actually can use an immediate powered up normal attack at the very first turn. And you can only, after that, actually start out with your 3 skill normal attack rotation or whatever. So yeah, overall, she looks really nice, but don't use her on auto battle because it's going to probably mess up really badly. But if you play her manually, she's really interesting, she's probably going to be really fun, and if you play her efficiently, she's actually looking quite strong. But she's single target forest breaker. Single target breaker might not be that interesting to a lot of people, but yeah, she looks pretty decent. But yeah, that was that. The next bit of news is going to be Magia Day, like I said, in 2 days on the 28th of September. The news videos for that is probably going to be like the longest news video you've ever seen. So keep that in mind, it's going to be an insanely long news video. I'm probably going to have to introduce Nagisa to you guys once that happens, because I assume it's going to be talked about or maybe even introduced or released or anything like that. But until then, thank you everyone for watching. Shout out to my members Rip van Winkel and Simpletor. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed that, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, become a member, and I'll see you guys next time.